Oh man. Okay, so we're live. Guys, this is Colleen. She is a Shebuilt VIP nearing the end of your 6-month phase 1 program, which seemed to go like super fast.
It did.
It's for some reason it flew by.
Well, it does feel fast, but there are aspects of it that felt really
yeah. like we're carrying on. Yeah, I know. I know what you're talking about. You're like, come on, when's this?
Yeah.
gonna happen? So will you just share a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do? She has a really cool career. Just tell us about yourself.
Sure. It's interesting to be at this end of things, since part of who I am is a podcast host.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that in a second. So Colleen O'Connell Campbell, mom, sister, daughter, wife, wealth advisor, mental health advocate, a whole bunch of things, right? All the labels that we put on ourselves. I live in a rural part of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. It's the capital of Canada. I know most of the followers of Shebuilt are in the US, but got introduced to Shannon and Shebuilt through an elementary school friend who I'm connected with on Facebook, right? There's the good power of social media. And I noticed a post that Kelly Deckard put out. Kelly Deckard Murphy, I think is her married name now. And it wasn't so much that there was this before and after picture, but it was what she wrote about her experience that caught my attention. And I fully believe in like the energy that flows through the world, and that post hit me at a time when I was looking for something. So it's this whole, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And I reached out to Kelly and she said, well, have a look at Shebuilt, have a look at Shannon's stuff. And it didn't take very long. I looked at a few things, messaged Shannon, and here we are almost 6 months into VIP. So I'm a wealth advisor, very practical, pragmatic kind of background, working with numbers and financial planning. That's that part of things. I launched a podcast a number of years ago. So usually I'm on the interviewing end of things. So it's a little bit interesting to be at this end. Oh, no. I mean, this is the fun part of my, the lead generating and impact component, just like what you do in the health and fitness and mindset, and I think we talked about this before we jumped on here. Mindset is a funny thing, and it's a word that gets really quite overused, but it does mean something. There is something about mindset and everything that we do that can have almost the greatest impact than the tactical aspects.
Yeah, they determine the choices and the decisions we make throughout the day, I think, which is why it's such an important component of this. If we're thinking in a certain direction, then our choices and decisions we make and priorities we make change with it. Yeah.
I meandered there a bit, but hopefully that it gives a bit of a sense.
You have a very full life and successful. And when you saw Kelly's post, like Kelly had a great before and after, and that's immediately, I think, what catches your eye with most people. It's what catches your eye. But then going into a lot of the stuff that she experienced with just her confidence in general, and was amazing. And she worded it so beautifully. So it was cool to see some people see her. She was shocked, by the way, that especially she's like, Colleen is like giving me high fives, like, whoa, and it was cool to see people come from that. We actually have a lot of followers in Canada, down right underneath the United States. There's quite a few people up in Canada.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And I can always pick them out the minute you start talking.
Hey?
Ta-ta for now. That's Colleen. Yeah. So when you said maybe you were kind of searching, what was it, if you could put into words, that you were sort of searching for, that Kelly sort of hit a nerve in?
Right. So, let's call a spade a spade. I'm in my 49th year. I'm 48, turning 49 this year. It's like a time in my life that after all the work that I put in with various eating habits and working out and stuff like that, I was feeling, this is part of it, and this is how the Shebuilt journey kind of evolves. But, I was just feeling like I think I'm doing the right things with food, and I'm working out regularly. I run, I do all these things. And I just was not feeling good in my shell. And I kept searching and searching and searching. And I could see that the scale, there was a creep on the scale. And like, I was measuring all this body image stuff, like this body image stuff has been on my mind since I can remember, as a young girl. These are things that we talked about in our one-on-ones. There's things that I journaled about that have, helped me. But, and before we got on here, we just talked about hair, like how even like having a good hair day, how you can make you feel good. Right. But in our world, there's so much that is measured by this outer piece. Right. And I just was not feeling good in my shell. And I was searching for that, how to reconcile the fact that, that outer shell really is kind of pedestrian. It doesn't really mean a whole lot, but yet it does. Like there's this give and take. And I was, what can I do? What can I do differently? What do I need to change? I was just feeling like frumpy and dumpy. And even though, people would give me feedback to say otherwise, not that I was asking for, but, unsolicited feedback would be like, oh gosh, Colleen, that's great. That's great. But if I'm not feeling great, it doesn't matter what you say to me. Right. And I was probably not what I wrote down anywhere, but I was really feeling like the scale was inching up to this number of where I was way back in my post-university days, around when, just after I got married, had my first child, David, who's 22 now. I was at my heaviest I ever was. And I was always curvy and not a slim girl. Like my nickname in high school was Chester, like the senior boys. And it wasn't Chester on the Cheetos, like it was Chester because I was, exactly. And that eats away at you. Like they might think that it's kind of a funny thing, but when all of your friends in high school are toothpicks and you are very curvy and you're being pointed out for that, it does
an identifying thing.
It eats at you, right? And I had subscribed to a program that's really well known, has big celebrities on it, and it's about what you eat, and it's basically based on I'm not going to give it a name, I'm not going to tell everyone, but it's based on like a calorie deficit, and it's based on eating so many points per day. And I was really successful with that for quite some time. After my first was born, I lost a pile of weight. I started exercising more, but it was more of an exercise. Like the mentality was, doing this is going to keep me from gaining weight. And then I had my second child and I put some of this back on and I followed this regime a bit more. And it actually, like, for me, in a way, I will say that knowing what I know now, I'm afraid of what damage it did do, but it did keep my weight down for a while. And fast forward, then I did start to find a place for fitness and working out and running and training and yoga and all that kind of stuff. And I managed to feel pretty good for a while. Like, so from my mid 30s to my mid 40s, 35 to 45, my weight fluctuated a bit, but I felt pretty decent about myself. But in these last few years, I don't think it's a COVID thing, because I'm actually having a home gym and stuff. I'm working out more regularly. So something else was happening and I couldn't put my finger on it. And it was really bothering me. And I was coming into a period we talked about of some major grief, and I was afraid of how I might emotionally eat, and if maybe I would lean a little too much on having extra wine, not binging, but just that slight numbing out, which, also then turns into not feeling good about it, also overeating, not getting the right sleep, and like the vicious cycle, the little subtle pieces all together.
Yeah.
So it was just this combination of uncomfortable in my skin, and then all these other pieces, and a true desire to want to be healthy. Like my goal is to be happy, healthy, and prosperous. Like that's what I want to manifest in my life.
Yeah. And it should be mentioned, like, you have been consistently working out through this whole time and consistently eating healthy foods. Like when you sent me your first food logs of like, just let me see what you eat in a day. You're not the person that sits around all day and is eating Twinkies and going, like, that wasn't the case. And I think sometimes that can make it even more frustrating when you're starting to kind of creep into something that makes you feel uncomfortable, but you are doing, you were running, you were exercising, you were kind of doing all the things. So it's like, why did you feel frustrated with that? That like, I am putting effort into these things and it's still creeping in on me.
Yeah. And so making the commitment to join Shebuilt, and showing you what I was eating, I will say that if I was tracking the month before or the 2 months before, you would have probably seen that I was eating like a bag of jujubes from Farm Boy. We talked about that.
Yeah.
But it is something about me though that once I make a commitment, I make a commitment.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to invest my time, my money, and my energy, I'm not going to sabotage this.
Yeah.
Right. So what was happening before is I would be eating as you saw, which was really good. And then I would not be seeing results. And so then, it would be frustrating, and I would have, whatever else was going on, stress, whatever. So I would eat a bag of candy, which only made me feel worse because I was like, why did I eat the bag of candy? And then of course that's not going to help. I know leading and lagging indicators, like what you eat and the exercise and all of that, those are the leading indicators, and of course, you step on the scale the next day, it might not show, but it does creep up. And if you layer those poor habits, it's that habit stacking, atomic habits piece where James Clear explains that really well in his book. But so it was frustrating. So I would make maybe minor progress or whatever, and then I would have a setback, and then I would like, let's just open a bottle of wine, have a glass at dinner,
Screw it. And I think when our window of what progress looks like is real narrow, and when we're focusing on what our progress is really narrow, that becomes even, you're like hyper focused on like, this is what progress means. It means the scale goes down. It means my jeans start fitting looser. It means this, but that's such a narrow thing that if that one thing's not happening, we're like, forget it. And we don't even really pay attention to the rest of it. And I think within like 2 weeks, we had some, Colleen we have a one-on-one relationship. So it's weekly. We get on the phone and we kind of talk about progress, how things are going, and sort some things out. Very early on, it became real clear that it wasn't just that thing. The word permission, I think it was our second phone call came up. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what did that mean for you when you kind of opened that door?
It means so much, right? It means permission to make a choice, not feel like I'm being pushed in something. Makes the permission to rest was a big one. Permission to enjoy food. Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to say all of my life, really, like all of my life, food was a punishment or a reward
tool to use.
Or it was just a means to an end. Like I would tell myself in my years of training, like when I was training for a marathon, half marathon, that the food was my fuel, and I could stay on track because I had this goal. Like that's just my orientation. And it was like, well, I got to eat these things, even if I don't like them, because it has to, this is what I need in order to achieve this. Right. But then what happens when you run the marathon? What happens for the next 2 months after the marathon? right?
What am I
Well,
feeling
you don't
right
have
now?
that goal. Like I'm gonna, yeah, or I'm feeling really tired too. You know, it made a lot of sense in Kate Deering's, when she was talking about endurance training, and I was reading that and why, like after I would, you know, there's a lot of adrenaline leading up to in the training and leading up to running something like a marathon or a half marathon. But then afterwards, I would be tired for, if I think about it, for a few weeks afterwards, because you know, I had really put my body under a lot of stress. So that's not necessarily a good thing. Yeah, great. I achieved something like out of my comfort zone, but what did it do for my whole entire body? Not so sure. But permission was big. Permission to rest was huge. Permission to enjoy food. Christmas this year, even though it was still COVID oriented, you know, I don't think I've had a Christmas where I have eaten my dinner and had my dessert and, you know, had a couple of glasses of wine at dinner and just felt like I could almost use the word content. I could almost, like, I don't think I'm quite there to say that I've hit that pinnacle of content.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed my food and I didn't feel like I had, this is good cake, but like I really shouldn't be eating cake. I shouldn't have ice cream. No, I had a piece of cake and I had ice cream and I ate it and I enjoyed it. And yeah. So, you know, my results, like, because you see a before and after picture and you want the results. And we've talked about that because that was something on my mind and I am a results oriented person, but there are so many ways other than the scale and even the progress pictures and the measuring inches. I think one of the tools that was very powerful, or that is very powerful in this program, is the health assessment tool. And even if, because it is a self-assessment tool, even if some of that self-assessment is purely about a change in the way that you're viewing things, which it could very well be half of the difference in the numbers could very well be the way in which I'm reading and interpreting the questionnaire. It doesn't matter because we talked about Joe Dispenza and how we can manifest things because we change the way we're thinking about them. So that tool is really important. And that's what, I don't know, it's like, it feels like 500 questions that are like really in depth, but at a high level, because I know that this is all about sharing an experience so others can, if they relate, then they have a chance to reach out and talk to you, talk about a real experience, not just the high level things. But you know, I did the assessment in November and the total number, the idea is to have a low number. So my number was 567.
Yeah. And that signifies the level of symptoms that you're experiencing from head to toe and out. Yeah.
January, that number was 196.
Blows my mind.
And then March, it was 128. So that's pretty natural to see a smaller change. I haven't done the assessment again, but you know, I'm sure that's coming up. And you know, in the next little while, another few weeks towards the end of the 6 months, and you know, even if that number is 130, let's say that number goes up, it's still a drastic improvement from November. And so, yes, I set out even when I signed up in my head, I wanted to see a lower number on the scale. And I wanted to know I lost, inches when I looked at myself. And I was looking, I had those moments partway through where I did some progress photos. My husband, he's like, can I delete these? And I'm like, yes, please delete them. Because he's my photographer. And I was really frustrated and I sent them to him. Like, do you see any difference? Like, I don't see any difference. And it was really bothering me. And, the power of having the coach and staying on track and not being the self-sabotage and walking into the Farm Boy grocery store and buying their delicious bag of jujubes was having the opportunity to, kind of go back and forth with Shannon and like, what is most important? And are you doing all the things and be patient? And if you're somebody like me who is frustrated and maybe is coming into a new, Shannon likes to talk about the seasons of life, and that is a fact. Like we do change and alter as we go through life experiences and as we age. So like, let's just throw that out, because like I think we get caught up in what aging is, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But it does mean that things are changing, and so accepting that. And so if you're someone like me who has been pretty good at eating, like especially given what we have around us, packaged goods versus not, and all that kind of stuff, like if you've been eating pretty good, if you've been working out in some way, shape, form, you have some movement practice, if you've been journaling, if you've already made progress there, know that there is still room if you're open to it. I think every professional out there has a coach, and also be patient, because it's only in the last progress photos, like where we're inching to 6 months, where there's a minute change. And it's only now that I've noticed a little bit of a change on the scale. And I'm okay with it, because I know that I'm eating well and fueling my body. And there's a whole bunch of other things that are, that have improved. And when you know if you start to understand the science and everything behind it, if you're really actually already fairly healthy, it's going to take longer than somebody who is making much more drastic changes, who are eating a lot of processed food and maybe not
physical result. Yeah. Because so you take somebody that's 75 pounds overweight and they're eating like crap, and you start to make those shifts and they start walking every day, they're going to see things quickly. So when you already have things in place, the physical part might take a bit long, because you don't have gobs of weight to lose, so it is going to be more like minuscule on those things. But that's why I think the health points are so important. And the health points are huge, because that's longevity of life. That's years added to your life. That's years of enjoyment added to your life, where you can be active and go do those things. That's what those numbers mean, staying away from the doctor and be able to be managed of your health. And then, yes, the mindset. So many people I see that go through transformations, and they have a massive physical transformation from point A to point B in a fairly short amount of time. And I think 6 months is a short amount of time, especially once you get into this stuff. It's like, that's a baby step, is 6 months. And you're talking about metabolic healing and all that. It is a slower process. But when somebody goes through a quick transformation and they've done all this stuff, I'm wondering on my end, what's going on up here? Right. And just like with your marathon, what's going to be the rubber band effect of that happening? And the more rubber band experience we have in our life, the longer it's going to take to repair from those rubber band moments, which is why I want to stop doing anything like now.
Well, and it's also, there's so much that we talked about, the slowing down to get more accomplished, and where we're putting our energy. And I can talk for days about mindset stuff in general, but that was huge for me. I can't say that it's I'm cured by any stretch. Never be. But especially after that one period of time with the progress photos, or it really got in my head, and it was basically, it was a waste of friggin' time. It was a waste of
felt like.
It was, because it was ridiculous. Like it was just a waste of energy. Energy better spent deciding what to eat next, deciding to have a rest, reading a book, rather than this spin in my head, and looking at I can't even, it's so true. How many times I looked at those photos trying to find like, honestly, like, is there something different there, really?
Yeah. And then that's like when I like to come in and sort of slap you around and be like, stop looking at those and let's look at this. Like, look at this. And just like you probably do with your clients when they're investing, they might be looking at the numbers day in and day out, and you're like, go on vacation for a while and come back and see me in 6 months, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about what's changed.
So this is where, what I could say is the investments, that's like looking at the scale and the, doing the progress photos, but it's also like, how are you actually spending your money? Because that's important. That's important too. Instead of focusing on all of this over here, are you actually enjoying your life? And have you set goals? Like, it's, I can relate so many of those things back to this process.
Yeah. And like, you have a son that cooks amazing food. You have told me about the stuff that he cooks.
Yeah.
So to be able to have him cook stuff for you and then just sit and enjoy it. I know recently you went, I don't know, there was some party or something, you went to some celebration and you went and you enjoyed it and you ate the food and you had a couple drinks and it was just fun. And I remember that being kind of an impactful piece too, because it was just, you went, you did it, you had a good time, and now I'm home and I just keep living. There's not like this,
oh no, I have to go in a calorie deficit for the next 3
Yeah.
days because I went to a party. Yeah.
Like there's 3 weeks of torture that you have to put yourself through. It's just it's just
and I love what we've talked about here in Shebuilt is earning the workouts as opposed to, again, the workouts and food being punishment or reward. Maybe that sounds a little bit like workout as a reward, but what I mean is like, it's like energized, and it's like I've eaten right, I've rested right, like I can go do a workout and it's going to feel good. Not like this morning is a perfect example. So I said I was a podcast interviewer, and today I had a podcast interview this morning, and I wasn't fully prepared for this, even though I've known it was coming for a while. Just it kind of a few things crept up on me. Part of it was last night was a window of time that I was going to review my notes, and I had a massive headache and just decided that I would be better off to have dinner, take an Advil, and lay down and rest. And so this morning, my choice was I can push myself and get up and do the work and do this, and then feel like I'm just having to cram to be prepared. Instead, I just said, no, like, take a deep breath. You want to be calm. Being overly stressed is not good for the body either. So I'm just going to review my notes and be prepared. And maybe later today, I will be able to get something. And if not, it's fine tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's not procrastination. It's making a choice about what is best in the moment. There's a difference. There really is.
I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. Okay. I thought I was going to sneeze. Sorry. But yeah, that's that. I think we're a lot of, especially professionals, entrepreneurs, enter the high performing woman or whatever you want to put in there. There's that hustle and grind mentality where we almost like we have a point to prove. Like, I have to hustle and grind harder than everybody else to prove that XYZ. And that ends up, even stay-at-home moms, I got to keep the house clean, I got to cook dinner, I got to do this, I got to take them to that. It is just, that is what I feel plagues so many of it. I catch myself in there still often, and I have to snap out of it. But understanding and really being intentional about, like, we've talked about this so much this week. When I slow down and when I know myself well, and I think that's what you just explained, is you know yourself really well. You've given yourself permission to give you what you need, and you know what you need. Everything starts to come back into alignment a little bit. It's not so, it's a little bit like having that scarcity mindset and that abundance mindset. Scarcity tells me I got to do all the things, I got to be this and this and knock it out, hustle and grind. Abundance is, I have all those things, I know what I need, this is my choice today, and then move on.
And in fact, I would actually argue that most of the time when we feel lack, and I mean, we the best of us are there, it's really enough. It's really when we have a mindset of enough, that rather than abundance, because abundance kind of has this teeter-totter effect to it, whereas enough is enough. And we've talked about this, but it was actually on the Daily Stoic podcast yesterday. I believe it was yesterday that I was listening to it. and that's what Ryan Holiday was quoting, was some of the Stoics and talking about enough. I mean, and he's like, even though they were the rich of the time, you know, it was, and it wasn't meant to be, you know, I don't know what's the right word, rude or whatever, to those who are truly, you know, in poverty. But there is a difference in terms of how you look at things, if you have enough, or if you're seeking and seeking and seeking. And that's, I mean, that's, I guess, the happiness, health, and prosperity for me is getting into that enough, is just enough.
I think about contentment when you say enough, being content with enough. And that's, I like to use the phrase, you can be, what is it? Something but not satisfied, content but not satisfied. You can be content but not satisfied. Like, you can be in a place of contentment and still want to achieve more, to do more, but here where I am, even if nothing changes, I'm content right now. And I think that's a precious gift that a lot of us are seeking, but many don't have, to be able to sit and just have, I have enough, I am enough, I do enough. And I'm still going to go do these things, and I still want to grow and be better, because that's what aging's about. Aging is not about getting old and sitting in your rocking chair and, you know, withering away. It's about growing and becoming more wise and figuring yourself out. And I think that's the most exciting part, that as women, maybe men too, we kind of, I mean, maybe they experience this, but women especially, if we're raising kids and we kind of have that, like, I need to do a bit more to you know, keep up or whatever, we lose ourselves. And that's another cliche term that I can't stand, but it's true. So many women in those different phases of life just lose elements of their self, and they're kind of like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what I need to give myself. I don't know. When I talk to women on calls, I'm like, I'll say, explain a year from now, what would you really like to see for yourself? What would be, you know, what are you enjoying? I don't know.
Well, I was at a birthday party on Saturday night, a 50th birthday party, and the birthday party woman, made a comment. She said, I was like, your cake is so good. And I'd seen a picture of it on Facebook, and I thought about it all day. And I was like, I am so enjoying a piece of that cake today. And that's part of this change in mentality. In the past, it would have been like, oh no, look at that cake. I'm going to have to
eat all day so I can have a piece of cake later.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It wasn't at all. But this is what she said. I ordered this cake because this is what Ronnie likes. I'm like, Stephanie, it's your 50th birthday. What's your favorite cake? She's like, well, I ordered this because this is what Ronnie likes. And I, in that moment, I was like, wow. I mean, I love this woman. She's wonderful, beautiful. I just see all of these things she's doing. And I just wonder, does she even know what kind of cake she likes?
Yeah. And that, I think a lot of people will identify with what you just said, because we have not given ourselves, and that's not all bad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't give life to your kids and your family and be in a place of, you know, but it's just natural. I think that once you spend so much time in that, I don't know what my favorite color is. I don't know what my favorite, because we just don't even think about it. It just hasn't been top of mind. And then at some point we get that feeling inside of like, maybe I've become resentful towards my family because they just use me, or maybe I am.
I have a good one for that. So being, I know that there's, you know, a variety of women in Shebuilt, being the business owner and the main person bringing home the funds to run the household. That was me. My husband was a stay-at-home dad for 11 years. And I will say that there was a point where I was feeling like I was an ATM. Like I was just the ATM, and in a whole bunch of different contexts. I said that to him one night, and this is quite some time ago now, but probably 10 years ago. But I remember this, and I remember feeling this way, and I'm like, you know what? It's like just push the buttons and the money comes out. Like that's how I feel right now. Like this is not this can't be anyway. Yeah, I think that it could be push the buttons and have the robot come deliver the laundry in some cases, and in other cases it's the the cash, but whatever the case may be. I think that that's a perfect way for us to end things, is just to ask. This would be a great question. I'm going to throw it out there to the Shebuilt community, whether it's whether you're putting this in the VIP or in the other group or whatever you're doing with it. But like, what is your favorite cake?
What's your favorite cake? I love that. And now that you ask that, I have to think about that for a second. Oh, I know what it is. My mom makes a dirt cake, and it's crushed Oreos, and in the middle is this amazing cream cheese whipped cream thing, and then more crushed Oreos, and it is the best thing on earth. That's my favorite cake.
And I have to think about it too, because I don't really know myself, actually. There's a lot of different things that I like. I can tell you what I like right now is Haagen-Dazs ice cream. A simple scoop with banana and maple syrup and raspberry Smucker's jam. That's my that's my treat. So I can't say, I'm not sure what my cake is. I'm going to think about it. But if you post this in the group, I'm saying if you've listened to this, you can prove it by writing in the group. Yes. What's your favorite cake? Come on, ladies, let's do it.
Absolutely. Let's hear the favorite cakes. And then, oh God, I just had something and it just left me. I want to say, you guys, that the dessert, the lovely dessert she mentioned, that is a recommended snack before bed.
That's when I love to have it.
Oh, we didn't even touch on the fact that before this, we were gluten and dairy free.
Yeah, and afraid of carbs.
And now you're eating carbs, you're eating gluten, you're
sourdough
eating dairy.
Bread. Yep. Lunch was sourdough bread with eggs, mayonnaise on a toasted. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you're still seeing physical progress starting, along with a health score that's going. So if that doesn't convince somebody that like things can be different, it doesn't have to be. And before we got on here live, you talked about how like before, when there was a diet or you were making changes to the way that you were eating, your family would kind of be like, oh my God, here we go again. But with this, they're not.
They're getting on board. My eldest son is partly joking, but he's like, will you check your macros before you come to the dinner table? And my husband's coming home because it's still a situation where I am the main worker bee in the house, and my husband works part-time, so he still does a lot of the extra stuff like the groceries. I make the list, he picks them up, but he's been instructed to buy things with only a few ingredients. So he comes home, he's all, I couldn't find breadcrumbs. They all have this big long list, but I found this and it only has 3 ingredients.
Well, honey, here's a YouTube video on how to take sourdough bread and make breadcrumbs. Here you go.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
That might be pushing it.
That's your son. Your son's the foodie.
Oh, my son.
Herbs, garlic, some butter.
Maybe he's more of a cooker. I could throw it out there. I'm not gonna push.
No. Well, one last question before we go. What would you say to somebody that was kind of in that position you were in when you saw Kelly's post? What would you say to somebody? Because there's a lot of people that follow Shebuilt for a long time and just are waiting sort of for that moment where like, okay, I need to make this change. What would you say to them?
Well, so I'm not sure how to end this, but here's my view of things is I think there are just some people that just don't ever make a decision. And I'm sorry, you're missing out if you don't make the decision. Like, in other words, like, are you really happy sitting where you're unsatisfied? And that's it. Like, if you're really, The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
So whoever you want to attribute to that quote, it's been Einstein and other people, but I don't know who it is. But frankly, if that's the case and that's the way you want to be, that's okay. But I think it's silly. Yeah. Because all you have to do is decide to make a commitment and follow through. So
yeah. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because if nobody's going to hold your hand, nobody's going to make you do anything. It's one of those choices that you have to make on your own. And the minute you do that, that's like the very first step in all of this stuff starting. It's not anything I do. It's you. We've all done that. I've been in that position. You've been in that position where you just have to make that choice. And it's scary. It feels you kind of got kicked in the gut. What's coming up in the next 6 months? I just made this commitment. And I like to call it sitting in our dirty diaper. How long do you gotta, that's my daughter calling. How long do you got to sit in your dirty diaper before you really get sick of it? That's it. Yeah. I love it. Thank you, Colleen. I think we could talk for hours. I can totally tell you're a podcast host. Morgan, leave me alone for a minute, because this was fun. I really enjoy this. What's your...
So a little plug, if you're interested.
Please. That's what I was going to say.
Since I'm here, it's called I'm a Millionaire, So Now What? Is the name of the podcast. I'm a Millionaire, So Now What? Inspiration for the Self-Made Nation. And I interview business owners, entrepreneurs. I bring in other guests. It's a little bit Canadiana content, I'll say, but I think everybody has a story, and regardless of where you are, there could be some interesting things. And here's the thing is, I believe wherever you live, that it's the business owners who are the engine of our economy. Amen. And I want to celebrate those stories. Also, I infuse a lot, like we said in the beginning, like I was somewhere on this journey already. I talk about the self-care and I infuse that, and I talk about mental health, which is really important. Listen to the podcast. You'll hear more about me. And I think that there is a place for us to celebrate wealth and be unapologetically wealthy. And it goes back to some of the comments I was making earlier about having enough and lack versus abundance. And it's not about wealthy and rich and greed. It's about impact, integrity, and self-reliance.
And it's about giving yourself permission to wear bright red pants.
Yeah. Okay.
We will get into that story later, but that's what you're saying is like, I can show up and I can give myself permission to rest, and I can show up and I can give myself permission to wear the pants that I want, that I feel good in, and I don't give a crap who anybody thinks about it. That's
precisely.
Love it. Thank you so much. You just fired me up. I'm going to be so excited all day now. Thank you.
Good. It is Friday. So
I know. And I get to go get Bean ready for her dance today. And I have a great hair day. So life's good. All right. Thank you, Colleen. Right. I'll get your podcast link and all your other stuff. I'll post the thing here. Good. So check that out.
Ta-ta for now.
Ta-ta for now. Bye.
Bye.